Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and super excited for today's guest, Bill Sycalik. And Bill has an awesome story. After dealing with a stressful life of working a corporate job in Manhattan, he realized that he wasn't living his passion. And in an attempt to reconnect with nature and what he really loved, he began a journey called the National Parks Marathon Project, where he set out to run a marathon in every national park in the country. So I'm super excited to have him. Bill, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to get to hear your story firsthand and, you get to share it with other people. So thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. So why don't we just jump into it? A little bit about your backstory and how you got to, I know you had your corporate job in New York. So kind of what led you there and then the steps that led you to the National Parks Project.
Yeah, so I had been I was a management consultant living and working in New York City. I lived in Long Island City, which is in Queens, and I worked every day in Manhattan, right in the Time Life building right across from Radio City Music Hall. So for the last year of that, it's about as a New York experience as you can get, right? Live in Queens and work in Midtown. And I just realized over the last 2.5 to 3 years that I was there, that it just wasn't feeding me anymore. It was two things can happen in New York. You can be fed by it or it can feed on you. And sometimes there's a transition from one to the other. So I was generally depressed. I wasn't happy about my living situation. I wasn't happy about my job. Just lots of things had come together to just bring me down to a low place. And so I knew that I needed a change, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. So I started taking small steps to improve my situation, my outlook on life, and eventually my physical location. I did at the end of 2015. Well, my company at the time, one of the benefits that they had was a sabbatical program that after 3 years of service with them, you could get up to 4 weeks off at 75% of your pay and all your benefits.
That's
now,
cool.
it is cool. They've since done away with that program, of course, but it was still in available when I was there. So I took my sabbatical. I took 4 weeks off plus almost 3 weeks of banked vacation. It's the first time in my professional career, and I'm 45 now, that I've ever taken any kind of extended time off like that. Mm-hmm. So my plan was to do two things that were going to try and help me think about what I would do when I tried to leave Manhattan or tried to extract myself from that situation. So I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, which is a silent meditation retreat. It's more of a course because they teach you the process. And I wanted to do that to just try and sort of get my head clear. I wasn't looking for enlightenment, but I was just trying to get to a point where the noise had been quelled for a little while.
Was meditation something that you had been doing before, or was it just something that you were just trying to switch it up however you could?
I was trying a little meditation on my own, and it's helpful. It's definitely helpful. Yeah. So if anybody wants to just do something as easy as the Headspace app, or listen to Tara Brach, or listen to Pema Chodron, any of those guided meditations are nice. I wanted a little bit more of an intense kind of focus, and also being away, because it was a retreat, so you're away from your daily life. Everything is provided for you. There's no talking. It's really a complete break.
It's like that atmosphere. It's whenever you're submerged in that type of atmosphere, it really does make a huge difference on your entire mindset.
Yeah, it's hard to be silent in New York.
Yeah, so, I bet. I can imagine.
So I did that retreat, and that was it was 10 days, and so I had the time after that, and then I spent a number of weeks in Merida, Mexico, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula. Merida, Mexico, and my Spanish is non-existent. But I have friends there that basically live there as expats, and one of my thoughts was that I would live abroad for a little while and take some time off and do the expat life. But I just realized it wasn't for me. I had been an expat before, and living in a big city where there wasn't access to nature, again, was something that I realized that I didn't want. And so I came back from all that, still not with any real idea of what I was going to do, except I was going to move to Denver. So I had, in the context of all of that, I just decided, I want to be where I want to be instead of going where the job is. And all of my professional career, I've made a number of moves, and they were all to follow the job or follow the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this decision was going to be, I'm going to move where I want to live and then find a job when I get there. So the plan was at the end of May of 2016, when my lease was up, I'd move to Denver. And I thought, well, like I said, I'll take some time off in between leaving New York and settling in Denver. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'm looking around. I happened to read that it was the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service and thought, oh, wow, maybe I'll see some of the national parks on the way out. That would be fun. And it was cool, but it wasn't compelling to me. It wasn't like an endeavor, like a project. And I thought, how can I combine what I like, which is running? So I run marathons, and I've done ultra marathons up to the 50-mile distance. And I thought, well, I like running, so maybe I'll trail run in the national parks. And it kind of just grew on itself. It's like, well, if I'm going to do it, why don't I run a marathon in the national parks? And then why don't I do all of them? And then once I said that, it was like so big that I thought, wow, is that even possible? Is that something that I can do? And well, actually, it is possible. People run that kind of distance all the time. So now, how do I make it happen for me? So that's where it came out of. And so far, I've run last year, in the last 54 weeks, I ran 48 marathon runs.
Wow.
In the 47 national parks in the lower 48 states and the Virgin Islands National Park.
That's awesome. Did you grow up like being a runner and being an athlete, or was it something like later on in life you just kind of picked it up just to get in better shape?
That's exactly right. The latter. I was living in Detroit at the time and had just decided I wanted to get in better shape, and I thought I'd try this running thing again. I didn't pick up running really until I was 33. So that's when I was I didn't run in college, didn't run in high school, didn't play any sports that required running. And I always thought I'd hate it. And I did. And I said, well, let me use this desire to get in better shape and focus it on checking off the bucket list, run a marathon. Mm-hmm. And so I signed up for a marathon. I had a friend help me with a training plan. I followed it, and I ran my first marathon at 33 and thought, oh, I can do so much better than that. Yeah. And kind of got hooked. You get a little competitive, and I liked the effects it had on my body. I liked the feeling that I got when I'm running, and I've been sticking with it ever since.
That's cool. Yeah, I've talked to so many people. I've never done a full marathon. I've done a half marathon, and it is really hard. But what everybody kind of seems to agree on is that it's that feeling afterwards and that atmosphere of all of the support around you at those kind of events and just the energy level. And it's just that overall feeling, especially at the end.
Yeah, at the big events, they're a lot of fun if you have a support group there, and of course, running on the course, you have a lot of people that are out there cheering, and mm-hmm. and that's fun. A lot of the smaller races that I've run, you don't have as much of that. There's a lot of camaraderie around with the runners, because the runners I find are generally very supportive of each other, and they like to share the love of the sport. But for the running that I've been doing in the national parks,
that's all you.
Yeah, there are no they're rarely organized races in the national parks, because the parks are for the people. They're mm-hmm. not for commercial exploitation and use. So there are a few national parks that have them, and they're usually very small, and they don't close off the park at all. So it's kind of the mix of the runners and then the public that's already there to see the park. But for this, it's all been me working with a trail map and the rangers to find out a 26.2 mile route that gets me safely back to the car and sees highlights of the park. And I go out on the day that I've chosen and have this wonderful experience in these beautiful places.
That's really cool. And just to backtrack a little bit, like whenever you were making the transition from your job to you decided that you were going to move to Colorado and then, embarking on this project, like what kind of support did you have? Or did you have just coworkers and people just thought you were like crazy? Because it's a pretty big transition, and I could see a lot of people not understanding, even though it probably makes perfect sense in your own mind because you're just following your passion. But what were like the thoughts you were getting from people and what people were saying?
Yeah, you got the typical kind of things. I wish I could do that. That's crazy. That's amazing. You're doing what? I hope I can join you. I'd always want to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that kind of sentiment. One of the messages that it's kind of evolved as I've gone through this project is the whole idea of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my friends and are we're obviously the same age, sort of mid 40s, professionals. I went to business school, so I have a lot of friends from my time at school, and not all of them, but a fair number of them, I think, feel stuck, and they don't know how to get out of it. Like, you followed a path so long, it's the one that people have expected you to take, or the one that's traditional. Yeah, you get an undergraduate degree in finance, and then you get a job at a bank, and then you go and you get an MBA, and then you get a job as a consultant, and you just continue to move up the ladder and work in bigger and bigger corporations with more and more responsibility. And if that's not what really motivates you and drives you, then you're actually not being the best person you can be to the world and to your friends and to your family. So it is possible to make a change, but a lot of people don't think it is.
Right.
And getting past that first stumbling block of thinking that it's possible, like it is possible for me to quit my job and run 48 marathons in 54 weeks. It's possible. That may not be the right thing for other people, but being stuck in a place where they're not happy, maybe they have a really long commute, they're not seeing their family regularly, they feel they have to work all of these hours just to provide for all of this extra stuff they have packed into their house, just doesn't bring out the best in the person. And it is possible to make a change. You just have to believe it. And then after that, it's logistics. It's like, it's planning. It's not instantaneous. It wasn't for me, but you just work out what you would have to do to make it happen, and you do it. And I think you end up being a much better person to the world and to everyone around you.
Right. And I think I like how you worded that. And I think it's interesting because you were just saying how those expectations. And I think that feeling of guilt, I mean, that's a real thing. Like, not like you go through that school and you have this expectation that you're supposed to just keep building on that corporate ladder. And I think that the guilt that some people have, like, to not stray from that is, I mean, that's definitely real. Yeah. And you see it all the time. And people make these, like, and I've mentioned this before in another podcast, but like, people have these imaginary barriers that they set for themselves when, I mean, they're setting their own limits. And, when you follow your passion and you're consistent with it and you just go in with that faith and you're doing the right thing for you, like, things will fall in place. And that's why I love what you're doing and just following your passion and not just doing something just because it's the norm.
Right. Absolutely. And I've been following the norm for a long time, and it's very, very, this is not easy. I mean, I hear somebody talk about it and you go, oh, easy for them to say, he's 45, he doesn't have kids, he's not married, he doesn't own a house right now. And he can just get up and leave. And sure, logistics again was easier for me. I just waited till my lease was over and then started up on the project, but nothing's impossible generally, right? You can sell your house, mm-hmm. you can move into a smaller house, you can move to a location you want to move. You can do these things. So believing that you can do them is the first step. And if you don't do that, then you're just going to continue to feel stuck.
Right. And something I was wondering about too, whenever I was, looking into your story, Bill, you did start off as that, in that corporate world. And was that, do you naturally have like that corporate mindset where like analytical, like schedule, and then you kind of started running, and then you're having to like kind of decompress a little bit, or are you naturally like more of a, like a nature, like patient runners mentality, and you had to kind of mold it into that corporate, you know what I mean? Like what's more natural to you, and like how did you switch whichever way?
Yeah, that's a very insightful question. That's why you're doing this podcast. So I think I'm a fairly logical, orderly kind of person, and that has benefited me fairly well in my professional career. It doesn't always give you an opportunity to sort of express your creative side, like artistically creative.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I was developing this project, and I did all the logistics as you would think you would do as a consultant. I have my budget for my spreadsheet with for my budget. I've got my plan,
your laminated Excel
the route,
sheet.
and I mean, you have to do that. You have to know how much money you have, how much money you think it's going to cost you to do this, how long you think you're going to be able to go before you run out of money and need to get a job, and what's the route you're going to take, and what gear do you need. And again, you plan it all out. This is all possible. You just think about it, and you maybe get help if you need to, and you do it.
Work in reverse.
But your question about sort of transition is a good one. So I'd say the first 7 to 8 months of this project, I ran it like a corporate project. Mm-hmm. Because that's my experience. That's what I've been doing for years and years and years. And so I treated it like a job. I had to achieve. I had to get on to the next one. I had to check it off. And that's because I've been in that. Been in that environment so long. And after about 7 or 8 months, I started to decompress, to relax a little bit more, to start just sort of I was enjoying it, but to let myself enjoy it, right? It's okay to not be regimented on a schedule. It's okay to go off and see something you've wanted to see, or something that's interesting that's not on your schedule. And that was something that I didn't think would take so long. I thought would be, after the first month or so, now I've gotten into my routine, but no, it took a long time. It really took a long time to start to let the fear go of not having a job and not having an income and not knowing where I'm going next and not where I'm staying.
Right.
I've gotten much, much better with it. I still have periodic panics that, holy crap, it's been 14 months something like that, that I haven't been working, 13 months. And, is that hurting my career? What is my career? Where am I going from here? And a lot of those questions I have I'm still wrestling with. Mm-hmm. But it took a while. So for people that want to take a break, you might have to take a longer break than you think to really sort of unlock your inner person that's been trampled and weighted down with what you think are your responsibilities in some instances, and some of that corporate pressure, and that what's expected of you versus what would really bring out the best in you. And it can take a while to get there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, everybody's so different and been through so much different situations. You just don't know how long that period's going to take. That's awesome. And to get back to the different running through the parks and the different parks that you went through, what was the most challenging part of the project so far, and just as a whole, and then the actual hardest park run for you so far?
The hardest part, honestly, about the project itself was just being the loneliness mm-hmm. of it, because I was doing it on my own, and I would meet people along the way, either at running groups or if I stay at hostels or things like that. But I'm on my own in a car driving around. Most of the time, I'm running on my own, mm-hmm. and that wears on you after a while. So that was kind of the toughest part. Logistically, nothing was insurmountable by any means. Mm-hmm. Camping and living and sleeping in hostels and and occasionally inexpensive Airbnb here and there, and people's houses and all that. Yeah, it's all perfectly acceptable. Not anything that's I never found that part of it to be untenable or overly challenging. Obviously, there are always issues that come up, but nothing that was overly difficult. Now, as far as specific park runs, there have been a few that have been tough because of some navigation challenges, the weather, mostly heat. Mm-hmm. I had a tough run at Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas because the route that I was supposed to take, let's say, was on the map, but wasn't on the ground.
Oh my gosh, I would be so scared.
Yeah, it was definitely a little touchy there for a little while because I'm running along on the trail and the trail just kind of ends.
Wow.
I'm going, well, it's not supposed to end on the map here, but.
So are you following a physical map, or do you have any kind of service to where you have like GPS, like on your phone or anything like that?
No phone service generally, and I do have a handheld GPS like an actual GPS unit, a Garmin handheld that I'll take on occasion. But usually I'm with the topographical map, and the trails are pretty distinct usually. So it's I try to be safe. It's not a survival experience. It's meant to be in a joy run through some of the most beautiful places in the world. So I don't make it where like I really want to challenge myself and see if I can climb that mountain as part of my run, right?
Right.
If the mountain's there on the route on the trail, then yeah, but I'm not going out of my way to make it overly aggressive. I mean, I'm already running 26 miles. So.
Right. That's hard enough. Did you have have you had any experiences where it has been kind of scary? Like whether it's an animal or an injury or anything like that to where you were a little bit on edge?
At Big Bend National Park, because of the heat, I got dehydrated. So I was weaving a bit at the end, but I was worried about it, but I also knew I was very, very close to the end, and that if I just took it easy, mm-hmm. then I'd make it, and I did. It was fine.
Did you run out of water?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be rough.
I took 4 liters of water with me. I mean, I took a lot.
Wow.
So normally I take 4 liters, a 3-liter hydration bladder, and then 2 bottles, mm-hmm. and that just wasn't enough. It was just a little too hot.
What all do you have packed with you? Like, do you have? I mean, I'm guessing you have some type of snack and like obviously the water and like what else are you carrying with you whenever you're on the trail?
Yeah, I take a small backpack with me. It's a Solomon Trail 20 liter pack, and I try to be safe and prudent. So I take the 4 liters of water, a first aid kit, something to start a fire. I have a Spot Gen 3 GPS safety beacon, which is not a navigational tool. Mm-hmm. It's an emergency tool. So if you have a problem, you press that button and they help facilitate your rescue.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And I'll take different types of clothing depending on what kind of environment it is. So if it's going to be hot or cold, I'll take a long sleeve or short sleeve shirt to change into. I take an emergency bivvy, which is basically a space blanket that's shaped like a sleeping bag so that you can get in and be warm if you have to spend the night on the trail. Mm-hmm. I take my meals, my food on the runs. I just actually take the hammer gels, which are the runners gels. I do that it was just for ease. There are little pockets on the side of the pack, and I can fit them in there easily, and they're not too messy, and I don't have to stop to dig around in the pack,
right?
To do that. So it just worked out well for me. What else did I take that's of interest? I usually carry my phone and my GoPro just to take videos and mm-hmm. photos, and trying to think anything else. Not probably, but it's escaping right now. I did weigh the pack once. The pack weighs about 10 pounds.
Gotcha. Just to make that 26.2 a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. But my friend made a really good point. He said, at least with the water, as you're drinking it, the pack gets lighter.
That's true. Another reason to stay hydrated. Yeah, and I'm sure it gets a little bit easier each time because you're adapting to that extra weight.
Yeah, you expect it. And
Yeah. So since that was the hardest one, like what was the easiest trail for you?
Oh, that's a good one. I like so in Florida, there's a national park, Dry Tortugas, is it's 100 miles west of Key West. So you take a ferry from Key West to the main island. It's mostly a marine park, so it's protecting the coral reef and the marine life that's around there. But there are some small islands, and then on the largest of the islands is a fort. It's Fort Jefferson. It's the largest brick structure in North America. 16 million bricks is what they say it was was made, and around. So it's kind of like a circular fort, and it actually has a drawbridge. So it kind of reminds me of like a castle, and it has a moat. And there's a wall that sits in between the moat water and the seawater, and it goes around the fort. And that little path now, it's like a little walking path now. It's 0.6 of a mile. And that was the only land available to run on. So I ran 22, it's 44 laps. 44 laps
my gosh.
to get 26.2 miles. So I ran 22 laps one way and then 22 laps the other way. So it was the easiest because it was flat. I didn't have to carry my pack.
I'm sure it was a good view too.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
The way the water, the beautiful blue water, how it changed as the sun moved, and the fish and different people. And yeah, no, it's not as boring as you'd think to do a repetitive course. And that was also the fastest marathon.
I was about to say, I was wondering if that was probably your fastest time, because I could see it going either way.
No, it was fastest. I felt really good, and because of the flat paved surface and not a whole lot of people at the time, and I just said I felt good, so I just kept going and came in 3:51. I think that was the
nice. That's
marathon.
Awesome. Yeah, I need to take advantage more of the national parks in Florida. Like we were talking before we started recording, I'm in Orlando, but have you finished all of the ones in Florida?
Yeah, there are 3 official national parks in Florida: Biscayne, Everglades, and Dry Tortugas.
Gotcha. Tortugas. Cool. Yeah, no, I definitely need to check those out. I'm sure Everglades was pretty interesting too, though.
Yeah, they're cool. They're tough because of the Biscayne is also a marine park that's mostly for protecting marine land. That's where the manatees live. They live around there, and of course Everglades is a big swamp in essence. And there was some land there, enough land, and that I was able to make a marathon out of it. Sometimes you have to be creative and just do what you need to do, and that's a good example of Dry Tortugas running around in circles, and at Everglades I ran on the tram road in Shark Valley. So you make it work, and that's part of the fun about this, is trying to figure out how to do this project in the confines of what they have at the parks. Right.
Yeah. Just figuring out whatever possible setback could happen and just making it work. I love it. That's awesome. And Bill, just to switch up a little bit, another thing that I love about your story is that you're actually a vegan athlete. And I'd love to hear more about your journey with eating a plant-based diet, and then also how it's impacted you as an athlete and steps that you take, because you are putting your body through a lot. So there's a lot of misconceptions about just being a vegan in general. So so if you want to just jump in with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess maybe 5 or 6 years ago now is when I sort of transitioned to become fully plant-based. I had gone through I didn't have a health scare. I didn't do it for health reasons. I did it for performance reasons. And I started, as I ran more and more, I wanted to adjust my diet to see what I could do to improve my performance, and started reading more. And I came across, I think, Rich Roll's book.
I was going to ask you.
Finding Ultra.
Yep, he's amazing.
Yeah. And I found the China study, and I started reading about this. And I wasn't eating a ton of meat anyway. I had given up red meat just because I was tired of it. So I was eating a lot of chicken, and then I backed off on that. I was eating a lot of fish, and then I just said, let me experiment. Let me try this and see what happens. And So I cut out the meat, and I don't eat dairy anyway because I'm lactose intolerant. So that was never an issue with me, and I just felt better. So what I had read is that as once you go to be completely plant-based and you dial in some consistent nutrition, that you recover faster from hard workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd read this a couple times and kept going, that's a bunch of BS. That's no, how can that happen? And I've experienced it myself. I totally recover faster than I did prior to becoming plant-based. So you go out for a marathon, you go out for a hard workout, track workout, whatever it is, some hard stress on your body, and just eating your normal, balanced plant-based diet, you recover faster and you're able to go hard again sooner than you would otherwise. So that's what I believe. That's what I've experienced myself. And so that's why I stick with it. And I don't think it's that hard, but I'm also not a very picky eater. So
right. No, I don't think it's, I think it's way easier than people think it is. Like once you get on, once you figure out what to substitute, it becomes extremely easy. And I mean, like you were saying, just, you feel so much better. So you said you were just researching it for your recovery. Did you have any support with that as well, or basically just the resources that you were looking into?
Yeah, no, I just did it on my own.
Yeah.
I just did, read things like Brennan Braziers' book Thrive and some of the others that are in that same vein there. And it just sort of resonated. And then as I experienced it myself, there's no reason for me to go back. And when I was on this trip, so here's an interesting way to think about it is like, so I was on this trip, I'm camping a fair bit, and I'm living out of the back of my car. So if you're eating a heavy meat-based diet, you're going to have to cook it on a camp stove every night. It's not like I was going camping on the weekend or going for a week and and now we're going to go home again. Like this is how I was living. So I just found eating plant-based much easier. I have a jet boil stove, which allows you to heat water, and I would actually eat minute rice, which a lot of people may scoff at, but hey, it's rice. It's plant-based. It's perfectly fine for you. There are obviously other things that are better, but you could eat brown rice from a cooker, but I didn't have that option. So
right. When you're when you're staying in your car, it's kind of like,
you're working with what you got that does the best given your situation. So I would eat rice. I'd eat canned beans, either low or no sodium, which are great. I still do that. And then I would eat as much fresh produce as I could. I had a cooler in the back of my car. And so I'd put ice in the bottom and I throw in some spinach and tomatoes and cucumbers and whatever else I picked up at the grocery store, and really good bread. So Dave's Killer Bread or Ezekiel bread or Eureka bread. And that's what I would eat. And in the mornings I would eat overnight oats. So I'd usually put water or some plant-based milk if I had it in Tupperware with some oatmeal or some chia seeds. Let that sit overnight, and that would be my breakfast with maybe a little agave syrup on there just to sweeten it up. And that was it. It doesn't have to be hard.
Right.
And it can be extremely there can be an extreme amount of variety if you have the opportunity and the means to do that, because there's it's a huge number of plants and fruits and vegetables that you can try but it doesn't have to be hard. It can be very simple, and you can perform at a very high level eating minute rice and beans and spinach sandwiches and oatmeal in the morning.
Yeah.
And lots of bananas. Lots of bananas. I love bananas.
Yeah, my I have a 18-month-old daughter, and that's like her favorite food. So if we don't have like 4 bunches of bananas at our house at one time, like we get kind of nervous because she freaks out if we don't have bananas. But it's awesome.
It's just fun to say banana. even when you're not 18 months old, right. It's just banana is fun.
That's awesome. But so Bill, through like this whole process, what do you think you learned the most about yourself so far? I know you're not quite done yet, almost, but just so far, what have you learned most about yourself?
I learned that it's definitely possible to make a change, and that you're not going to die. Fighting this fear of doing what other people expect you to do, given your education and your background and your work history and all that. It's a tough thing to get through, but it is possible. And once you work through that, you feel better. And so, I'm feeling a lot better about. I still have panics like you would think, and fight it, but it's not as bad. Now I've had this experience of the past year of not having a job and visiting these wonderful places. I would have never gone to them probably. I would have never been on a podcast as fine as this one to be able to talk about these things. And I've learned that there's so much more that you can do, that I can do, if I try to at least think a little bit outside of the typical sort of standard, expectations process, or whatever you want to call it. So, I've learned that I can do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is the book, is that the next thing? Are you coming out with a book on the way?
Everybody asks me that.
I think you should.
Yeah, I have to. That's something I struggle with too, because it was an exciting thing for me, but I'm not sure the details of this project would have been is make for a thrilling read, right?
I think you'd be surprised. I think you would have a really great response, and plus, I mean, you've taken so many pictures, like you could incorporate that into it as well. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm working on slowly is writing a haiku for every national park.
Oh, that's cool.
So anybody who's listening who is interested goes out to my website at runningtheparks.com. There's a haiku page, and slowly I'm working on putting that out there. So one of my thoughts was maybe I'd do a haiku / photo book.
That would be awesome.
That would be kind of cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. So you were just talking about your website. What are other ways people can follow what you're doing? Obviously, the website, the blog, and how can people follow you on social media as well?
Yeah, I post on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Most of the stuff tends to be photo related. So Instagram is usually my first go to. But on Twitter, it's at Run the Parks. Unfortunately, Running the Parks was taken by somebody else, and they wouldn't give it up. And so Twitter is at Run the Parks. If you go to Facebook, you can search Running the Parks, or you can go facebook.com/Running the Parks. Mm-hmm. Or Instagram, the handle is at Running the Parks.
Awesome. And then, Bill, closing question, but it was pretty similar to that last question I asked you. But the closing question that I ask everybody is, if you could give one piece of advice to the audience, maybe it's something that you've really taken away along your journey, what would it be?
Believe that it's possible. Start with believing that what you have in your mind and is possible. Like, just believe in it all of the time. Everything is possible. Things that are good are possible. Change is possible. Things that are bad are possible. And in that instance, thinking about things that are bad helps you actually prevent them from happening in some instances. But believing is possible is the first step to actually making things happen. So, don't be afraid to say, I can do this, and then figure out how to do it. Or say, hey, yeah, it's possible for me to run 58 marathons, but I don't want to. and that's okay, but don't discount it right away. At least recognize the possibility, because if you're cutting off the possibility of something like what I'm doing from your life, you're probably cutting off things that you might actually want to do, other things that are possible. And always having that belief of possibility will lead to other things that are rewarding and fulfilling in your life.
That's awesome. I love it, Bill. And thank you so much for coming on. I loved having you, and I'm excited to share your story with other people, because I think what you're doing is really amazing. And I'm excited to personally follow you on social media as well, just so I can keep up with the pictures and go back and see the past ones. But thank you so much for making the time to come on.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I appreciate the invitation, and great chat with you today.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode with Bill. I hope you enjoyed it. His story is so amazing. And if you go back and look at his past posts at the different parks that he's ran at, his pictures are seriously beautiful. And I'm excited to keep up with them this next year and see the newest ones, because I know they're going to be just as beautiful and just as awesome. So if you want more information about each guest that has been on the podcast, jump over to drcaseyjohnson.com. That's DRKASEY Johnson.com. Click on the Listen tab, and then from there you'll be able to see every past guest that's come on, more information about them, and be able to click on their social media links. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, jump on iTunes, give us a good review, and make sure you subscribe. But thank you so much for tuning in.